Good morning, everyone. Aaron here. The people who knew Jesus best were the ones who couldn't see him at all. And that familiar blindness might sit closer to home than we'd like to admit. Then we meet a soldier who chased glory his whole life until a shattered leg and a borrowed book turned him into a saint. For those of you looking for our traditional Catholic prayers, the link is in the description, and I'll drop it on the screen at the end of this video. In our Friday morning gospel from Matthew chapter 13, we hear, Jesus came to his native place and taught the people in their synagogue. They were astonished and said, "Where did this man get such wisdom and mighty deeds? Is he not the carpenter's son? Is not his mother named Mary, and his brothers, James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas? Are not his sisters all with us? Where did this man get all this?" And they took offense at him. But Jesus said to them, "A prophet is not without honor, except in his native place and in his own house. And he did not work many mighty deeds there because of their lack of faith." Picture it. He walks back into the town where he grew up. These are the people who watched him as a boy, who knew his mother Mary, who probably bought a table or a bench from the family shop at some point. When he stands up to teach, they can't get their minds around it. The wisdom is right there in front of them. The mighty deeds are real. And all they can say is, "Isn't this the carpenter's son? Where is all this coming from?" They knew him too well to really see him. That's the strange thing about it. The very closeness that should have opened their eyes is what closed them. And maybe that's where this meets us this morning, because we do the same thing without noticing. There are people in our lives we've known so long that we've quietly decided who they are. The spouse across the dinner table, the coworker we've written off, the family member we love, but expect nothing new from. Somewhere along the way, we stopped really looking, and we started reacting to the version of them we already carry in our heads. Perhaps the harder question is whether we do this with God too. It's easy to expect him in the big moments, the ones that feel holy and are set apart. But the ordinary Tuesday, the same drive and prayers we've said 1,000 times, the same faces at the same Mass, all of it can go quiet in us. We can be standing right next to grace and miss it simply because we've seen it before. Notice what the gospel says at the end. He did not work mighty deeds there because of their lack of faith. That's a sobering little line. It doesn't say he couldn't. What it says is that their unbelief left so little room. When we've already made up our minds that nothing new is going to happen here, in the house or this marriage, in the stretch of ordinary days, we can quietly close the door. Very thing God wanted to do. So maybe the invitation this morning is to simply look again, to walk into the familiar with our eyes actually open, and let the person we think we've figured out surprise us. We can come to the same Mass and the same daily bread, still expecting that the Lord who astonished a whole synagogue is not finished astonishing us, because he is not the carpenter's son the way they meant it. He took on our ordinary life, a real home in a real town with a real mother, and made all of it the place where God comes to meet us. The ordinary is exactly where he chose to arrive. It's still where he arrives. The offense in Nazareth wasn't that he was too strange. It was that he was too familiar. And that same temptation follows us right into today, into every worn and well-known corner of our lives. So before the day gets loud, maybe we ask Him to open our eyes to what we've stopped seeing, to the grace that's been right there in front of us all along, waiting for us to expect it again. Now let's turn to today's memorial. Saint Ignatius of Loyola started out wanting nothing to do with holiness. He was born Iñigo López de Loyola in 1491 in the Basque Country of Spain, the youngest of 13 children in a family of minor nobility. Trained in sword fighting and everything military, he danced and gambled, got into fights, and chased women. What he wanted was fame. He dreamed of being a great knight like Spain's hero El Cid. And for a while, it looked like he might get there. People saw him as a brave soldier. Then in 1521, at Pamplona, a French cannonball shattered his leg. He and his men had refused to surrender, and this was the price. The leg was set badly and started healing crooked, and Iñigo, who cared a great deal about how he looked, begged the doctors to break it again and reset it. That recovery took the better part of a year. To pass the time, he asked for the kind of stories he loved, tales of knights and battles. But there were no such books in the house. What they brought him instead was a life of Christ and a book on the lives of the saints. He had no interest in either one. But he was bored, and eventually he opened them. And it was like opening a door onto a world he had never seen. He started imagining the life of Christ the way he once imagined battles, picturing the scenes and praying his way through them. And he began to think that men like St. Francis were braver than any soldier he had ever known. And he noticed something strange. His old dreams of glory still came, but they left him with a bitter aftertaste. The thoughts of Christ and the saints were harder, but they left him with a deep and lasting peace. He didn't know it yet, but he was learning to tell one kind of thought from another. This was the first taste of what he would later call the discernment of spirits. When he could finally walk, he set out to become a different kind of knight. Along the way, he traded his fine clothes with a beggar. He carried his sword to the shrine of Our Lady of Montserrat and laid it down in front of her. And he kept vigil all night, the way a man does before he is knighted. He was going to serve a different Lord now. He stayed nearly a year at Manresa, living in poverty, praying, and doing penance. Some days prayer was sweet. Other days he sank so low he came close to despair. Slowly the pattern he had glimpsed became clear. The thoughts that stayed and brought peace were from God, and the ones that glittered and left him empty were not. What he wrote down in those months became the foundation of his spiritual exercises. Once he was given a vision of the Trinity so beautiful that it left him in tears, and that beauty stayed with him the rest of his life. Now going by Ignatius, he made his way to Paris to study, and there he found two roommates, Francis Xavier and Peter Faber. On the 15th of August, 1534, the three of them and four others took vows together. They would place themselves at the service of the Pope out of love. That small band of friends became the Society of Jesus. The Jesuits were born, and Ignatius was their first Father General until he died on July 31st, 1556. He sent his companions out across the world with the one thing he had learned in that cave, that we are made not to chase glory, but to love and serve and praise and live for the greater glory of God. Saint Ignatius, you laid your sword down and gave your whole life to Christ. Help us hand over our own dreams and find that deeper peace that only He can give. Amen. 2 invitations to look again this morning. The gospel asks us not to close the door on the people and the ordinary days we think we've already figured out. And in Ignatius, we see a man who did exactly that with his own life, laying down the glory he had chased for something quieter and truer. Both of them turn on the same small act, handing over what we were sure we already knew and letting the Lord surprise us. Maybe that's the grace to carry into the day. Eyes open, still expecting Him. Click the link in the center of the screen now for today's Catholic morning prayers, and I'll see you there. Share your intentions in the comments below, and be sure to share this video with someone you love. God bless.